If you want a more fruitful garden, increased success in landscape that just feels better, then tune in daily to the Top 10 Garden Podcast. Years of tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts are guaranteed to make your gardens nicer than ever. Listen to this podcast or read Ken's weekly garden column by visiting watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Thanks for tuning in.
So getting your garden soils ready, and this is probably, I guess there's 2 ways to go about this. If you're traditionally going into a garden, let's say a main vegetable garden out there in the yard, that's different than, let's say, a raised bed or a container garden. So there's kind of a different approach to those. If it's a container, you don't really need to add manures and that kind of stuff. It's too hot for this small roots container size or pot size. So there we're just doing fresh potting soil. What happens is the plants will actually use up the soil. So you'll literally see soil disappear. It'll shrink. You're going, oh, it blew away. Where did it go? What's happening? Well, the plants are actually using or gobbling up the soil. And so you need to replenish some of that. Do it now. So I'll top my containers off and I'll leave about an inch from the top so that I've got room to water. And then I'm all set. And then I'll fertilize on top of that. I'll usually put a handful of all-purpose plant food, 744 food, on top of that, and you're good to go. Or if there's nothing in that bed at all, nothing in that container, and you're just potting all new, let's say lettuce or all new tomato or all new, then you're probably going to take a piece of a layer of that soil out of there where all the old roots were from last year. Dig some of that out. Be aggressive. You want to add some freshness, at least to the depth of the root zone of whatever you're going to be planting. If it's potatoes, something like that, you're probably going to, deeper is better. Replace it all. And so if it's lighter, shallower stuff, you're seeding some radishes, maybe just the top 8 to 12 inches is good enough. But add some freshness. In raised beds, okay, you've put some block or some pavers or some lumber, and you're retaining some soil in there because your ground is just so bad out there. They're just, again, same thing. Get a couple bags of potting soil, and I wouldn't mix it in. I just lay it on top, and you want to plant inside that new fresh potting soil. Out in the yard, it's different. This is when you use manure. This is your best season. So you're getting, just spread a 2 to 3 inch layer of manure out there over the entire soil planting garden area. And then you want to mix that into the soil, that last year's soil, about 1 shovel's depth or 1 rototiller depth. Okay, so while you're doing that, while you're turning that manure into the last year's soil, freshening, adding some vigor, some vitality back into the soil, you want to add some fertilizer at the same time. There, if it's edible stuff, get a bag of the fruit and vegetable food. It's all organics, pelletized. Usually I'll put my manure down, I'll put my fertilizer down, and then I'll start digging it up. I'll just turning it under. If you run into some old roots from last year, dig those things out. If the trees are growing into this area, dig that stuff out. Roots are not good. Things that are not composted already are not good. You want to compost those off to the side and then reintroduce them back in the gardens as they have composted together this rich, chocolatey kind of coffee ground looking dark, rich mocha color to it. So if they haven't broken down yet, they'll take fertilizer to help themselves break down right there in the garden soil. So they'll take it from the plants and use it for itself. You don't want that. You want all that food available for your potatoes, for your lettuce, your kales, your cabbages, all that early spring planting, for your radishes. So that's kind of how you get garden soils ready for the yard. And we've got all that stuff ready for you. And for the love of gardening, don't use gross, disgusting manure. We've deodorized all of ours so it doesn't stink so bad. Use that instead for your gardens. Here at Waters Garden Center. Waters Garden companions of February are peony, Calgary carpet, juniper, pinyon pines, and lily of the valley.
If you want a more fruitful garden, increased success in landscape that just feels better, then tune in daily to the Top 10 Garden Podcast. Years of tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts are guaranteed to make your gardens nicer than ever. Listen to this podcast or read Ken's weekly garden column by visiting watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Thanks for tuning in.